This is CBC Nova Scotia News.
Tonight, tariffs delayed. Ottawa says U.S. President Donald Trump is pausing 25% tariffs on Canadian goods for at least a month.
Dense breast screening. Advocates say better cancer detection could save lives.
And eyeing the future, a Nova Scotia vision company gets a boost from a provincial fund.
A snowy start to Tuesday. That will impact travel, but we are looking at clearing skies, but cooling temperatures. Tuesday night into Wednesday, your full forecast is coming up.
Good evening. We begin with some breaking news. Donald Trump's 25% tariffs on Canadian goods will be paused for 30 days.
In a tweet late this afternoon, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says he had a good call with President Trump, and Canada is implementing a $1.3 billion border plan. The border plan will include new choppers, technology and personnel, and increased resources to stop the flow of fentanyl. Trudeau says nearly 10,000 frontline personnel are and will be working on protecting the border.
In addition, Canada is making new commitments to appoint a fentanyl czar, ensure 24/7 eyes on the border, launch a Canada-U.S. joint strike force to combat organized crime, fentanyl, and money laundering. Amid so much uncertainty, Nova Scotians are still bracing for the possible impact of UF tariffs if they ever do come. Premier Tim Houston had already announced a number of retaliatory measures to fight back against possible tariffs. The CBC's Blair Rhodes has more on how Nova Scotians were preparing today before the pause was announced.
And so it begins. Nova Scotia liquor store employees start pulling American alcohol off store shelves, acting on orders from Premier Houston. The bulk of the work will come this evening at liquor stores across the province. Last fiscal year, American booze accounted for 7% of imports for NSLC, worth about $18 million. Other provinces, including Ontario, Newfoundland, and Manitoba, are planning their own booze bans. And in the Cobequid Pass, any American trucks that roll up to the tolls will have to pay double the tolls that other trucks are paying, another retaliatory measure for Trump's 25% tariff. Forestry is a Nova Scotia industry that's borne the brunt of punitive American trade measures in the past. The industry just happens to be having its annual meeting as it braces for what's to come this time.
It's no fun to think of having a 25% duty, and I still hope something happens before tomorrow morning, but that's probably a pretty faint hope.
Lidwich says for people who suggest his company diversify, it's easier said than done.
Our customers in the U.S., Home Depot and people like that, we value those relationships. But of course now we're challenged, as many people, do you pass that on to your customer, or what are your strategies?
The provincial government was on hand at the conference to try to reassure the forestry industry.
Trade wars serve no one. The tariffs imposed by the U.S. administration are unjustified and detrimental to both Americans and Canadians. For now, I encourage all exporters to review their shipments carefully, stay in touch with your U.S. importers to ensure proper compliance, and keep an eye on announcements.
Groceries are another tariff battleground. Nova Scotia-based grocery giant Sobeys has issued a statement saying it will continue to promote Nova Scotia products while searching for alternative sources for those items it currently gets from the United States. Blair Rhodes, CBC News, Halifax.
And just a reminder, those tariffs on pause, but the weather, that never stops,
It never stops, especially this time of year. It just keeps on rolling, doesn't it,
Yeah,
Ryan?
wouldn't it be nice if we could hit the pause button on Mother Nature once in a while? I know winter lovers certainly loving that we are into winter now, full on the snow, the cold, and this week will be no different, though we will see some mixing tonight. Monday night and into Tuesday, as you will see here with this system coming in. Kind of a widespread 2 to 5 centimeters, but down here in the south and west, Yarmouth, Shelburne, and up the South Shore, likely less than that, given the fact that we'll be seeing a change to rain. A little bit more up into the Cobequid Mountains, 10 to 15 centimeters there, and some pockets of 5 to 10, but overall we're looking at 2 to 5 across the mainland. Watching the timeline of this, as it marches in and across mainland Nova Scotia overnight, you can see that mix with the rain for the Tri-County area up the South Shore, even into the metro area. Halifax likely will see some rain mixing in overnight, mostly snow inland and higher terrain areas, especially across the north and east and into Cape Breton. Leftover snow and a change back to snow, or at least a rain-snow mix along the South Shore and into the Tri-County area early Tuesday. So either a snowy or a slushy start to the day and for your drive Tuesday morning all across the province. So leave yourself extra time and space. Note temperatures kind of hugging the freezing mark early on Tuesday, and then those temperatures are either going to be falling a degree or two, or even a little bit more up towards the north, where Amherst and Tattamagush, New Glasgow will likely fall to around -4, -5 into the afternoon. Couple of isolated flurries left over behind this system, but some sunshine breaking through as well. Wednesday's going to be cold. We've got a cold Arctic air mass moving back in, and then we've got another system moving in as things stay active. We'll talk about it with your 7-day forecast coming up.
Lots to talk about for sure. Okay, Ryan, thank you so much.
Thanks, Ryan.
Well, the Halifax Walmart, where a 19-year-old woman was found dead, has reopened more than 3 months after the tragedy. The Mumford Road store opened the doors to customers again at 7 a.m. today. It has gone through a complete renovation since the death of Gurmit Kaur, whose body was discovered in a commercial bakery oven last October. Managers were there to welcome approximately 300 employees back to the store.
Well, it's with mixed emotions that we opened the store today. It's great to have our customers and our associates back in the store. Obviously, the tragedy is still top of mind, and it's something that will be sad forever.
Ritzy says support is still available to staff who were paid throughout the renovation. Halifax Regional Police said last November there was no evidence of foul play in Kaur's death.
The driver of a pickup truck was ticketed after crashing into a school bus in downtown Halifax this morning. The crash happened around 7:45 in the morning at the intersection of Barrington Street and North Street. Police say the school bus and the Dodge Ram collided head-on at a low speed. There were no injuries. The driver of the Ram was given a ticket for failing to yield to a vehicle already in the intersection when making a left turn.
Advocates say the story of a Nova Scotia woman who died of breast cancer is an example of why women with dense breasts need supplemental screening. They say it can be life-saving. The CBC's Allie Thompson tells us why.
She had every reason to be angry that the healthcare system failed her. We actually talked about that, and I can honestly say there was no anger. And that is pretty incredible when you sit back and think about it.
That's Kim Harris talking about her friend of 40 years, Tanya Harrison. Tanya died last December of breast cancer. 3 years earlier, the 53-year-old wife and mother was told she had dense breasts after a routine mammogram. It can be difficult for mammograms to pick up cancers in people with dense breasts because dense breast tissue and abnormal breast changes, such as tumors, both show up as white areas on the imaging. Harrison asked for supplemental screening, like an MRI or ultrasound, but was denied. The former university librarian felt if she had received it, she may have had a chance to fight for remission. Advocates say her story is an example of why supplemental screening should become a standard for women with dense breasts. Here's why. Ultrasounds and MRIs can pick up things a mammogram cannot because they're more detailed. In Nova Scotia, patients who have a greater than 25% lifetime risk of breast cancer can access mammography and supplemental MRI screening. Factors that increase someone's risk of breast cancer include family health history, whether a patient carries a certain gene, and breast density. But Jenny Dale of the advocacy group Dense Breast Canada says simply having dense breasts should be enough for those patients to get supplemental screening. She says mammography misses about 40% of cancers in women with dense breasts.
And so women must get additional screening, and that is what is being denied to them. So they are given a test that is not accurate. They are not told it's not accurate. They are not warned that they need to be vigilant. If they see anything, feel anything, they need to be their own advocate.
There is currently no organized breast cancer screening program in Canada that offers supplemental screening to women with dense breasts. But some regions are moving towards offering the screening outside of those programs with a doctor's referral. Alberta says doctors should consider an annual breast ultrasound for women with extremely dense breasts on a case-by-case basis. The Northwest Territories says it aligns with Alberta's best practices. British Columbia says ultrasounds are available with a referral. And in Ontario, people with extremely dense breasts can talk to their doctor about being referred for additional screening. In 2023, an Ontario Health Committee recommended publicly funding supplemental screening as an adjunct to mammography for people with extremely dense breasts. The province's Ministry of Health is currently reviewing the recommendation. Tanya spent some of her final days fighting for women with dense breasts to have the option of supplemental screening. And her friend Kim says she feels a duty to carry on her advocacy.
She was very spiritual. We would joke about, the tricky universe sending us messages. 15 minutes after she passed, I got a very, very strong sign from her. I just know. I just know that this meant a lot to her.
Allie Thompson, CBC News, Halifax.
Colorsmith, a company trying to develop the next big thing in vision care, has benefited from lab space through Life Sciences Nova Scotia. It's one of several groups that receive money from the province's Economic Development Fund. Michael Gorman has that story.
In this Halifax lab, Gabrielle Massoni and her team are trying to develop the next big thing in vision care. The patented technology of her company, Colorsmith, places precision light filtering into contact lenses. The process uses the same dyes as glasses that correct things such as color blindness and other conditions.
So we'll see products for harmful light protection, color enhancement for athletes, contrast improvement, and even prevention for things like light sensitivity and headaches that you might see on a daily basis.
With an eye on commercialization and pairing their technology with major vision companies, Colorsmith has benefited from lab space through Life Sciences Nova Scotia. Massoni says it's been key to turning an idea into a company with 10 employees and several $1 million in startup investments.
We're in a position where in order to prove yourselves out as an early stage biotechnology company, you need a space to do it. You need a wet lab space, you need to develop your IP, you need to file for those IPs, and you need to be able to do it in a place that offers that confidentiality so you actually qualify for the IP that underpins your success.
Life Sciences Nova Scotia is one of several groups that recently received funding from the province's Community Economic Development Fund. The organization's CEO says they tailor their help to each company's needs, with about 100 groups around the province currently receiving support.
And sometimes that's IP support, and we point them to Springboard Atlantic. Sometimes it's lab space, and we introduce them to Invest Nova Scotia or other funding. But we really take on that navigational role for our companies.
The cabinet minister responsible says funding for organizations such as Life Sciences Nova Scotia is an investment that can have ripple effects for the economy.
It's looking at the potential of this province and making these targeted investments and ensuring that what we have here can grow for the future of Nova Scotia.
Gabrielle Massoni is hoping Colorsmith will be part of that future. Michael Gorman, CBC News, Halifax.
The inaugural Four Nations Face-Off tournament will replace the NHL All-Star Game this year. 3 players from Nova Scotia will all suit up for the red and white.
Captain Canada Sidney Crosby talks about what it means to him to play with hometown pals Nathan MacKinnon and Brad Marchand.
They're kind of calling you and McKinnon and Marchand the Nova Scotia Mafia. How cool is it going to be that 3 guys that grew up so close together are actually going to be representing the country in less than 2 weeks?
Yeah, it's special. I mean, we growing up there, I think that it's just something that we appreciate that we have the opportunity to do that, all be in different ages. It doesn't always work out that way. So the fact that we can do it, yeah, I think that we just appreciate that opportunity. And like you said, whether we play on the same line or not, I don't think that's something that, it's not something I'm thinking about a whole lot, just being on the same team, for a group of guys that, train together, seeing how they work in the summer and how much they put into it and knowing what this means to them. That's really what it's all about.
Chilly look for the Halifax waterfront. A little cold for a walk.
Sure is a cold, isn't it?
Ryan's up next with his full weather forecast.
All right, so much going on today, so difficult to keep track of everything, but yeah, and lots of weather happening as well. Snowy Tuesday looks like the case.
I know, and you're going to be busy this week. There's more to come.
It's going to be a busy week. Yeah, no question. Every couple of days, we've got another system moving in. Now, tonight's is actually the weakest of the three that we're watching for the next 7, but still an impactful one in that it's bringing some snow in tonight and also into tomorrow morning. So that's going to make things a bit slick and snowy. Have a look at current temperatures. Right around the freezing mark right now. Back Row's at 2, Westport's at 2, everybody else at or just below the freezing mark. Western Head also at 1. That wind from the southeast and becoming southwest now for the Tri-County area into the Lunenburg area. And what we're going to be seeing for tonight, given those temperatures are right near the freezing mark, is, a bit of that wet mix along the southern parts of the province and then a change over to rain here for the Tri-County area and into the South Shore up through Shelburne to Lunenburg and then eventually into the Halifax area. We'll likely see that mix as well. This is the first little push here along this warm frontal boundary starting to fade away, but be mindful that with temperatures near the freezing mark, things could be a little bit slick even for this evening's travel. Cold frontal boundary here, this is where we're going to be seeing kind of the bulk of the precipitation and moisture moving in overnight tonight. Behind it, the temperatures, the real meal deal for wintertime. I mean, even Vancouver is at -1 with more than 15 centimeters set for the metro area of Vancouver, so big storm for them. And you can see temperatures very chilly through the prairies, -10 in Thunder Bay, and that cold air is working its way eastward. So how's it all going to play out? Well, let's walk you through the timeline here. Right near the freezing mark, temperatures rising to these temperatures overnight tonight. And we'll likely be in and around the +0 to +1 range by the time we get to Tuesday morning. Southwest winds will be gusting 40 to 50 kilometers per hour. And there's that snow working out of New Brunswick and into Nova Scotia. By 2-3 a.m., we'll have changed to rain, Tri-County area, up through the South Shore and into the metro area, accumulating snow inland and over higher terrain areas and across the north and into the valley as well and around Cobequid Bay and into Cape Breton. And then as that front moves through, we mix back to some snow for the Tri-County area, the South Shore and the metro area for that morning commute. So it, at the very least, will be slushy across the province, and for inland higher terrain areas and across the north, it will be a snowy drive or leftover from what fell the night, of course, through the overnight. Now, by the time we get to noon, we're done, but it will be that slow but sure gradual clear out through Tuesday morning. So just be mindful to leave yourself some extra time and space. Note in that northwest wind, we'll see some flurries firing up into the afternoon as the temperatures do slide a little bit. Snowfall outlook, this is this evening into the overnight. There's that widespread 2 to 5 in the dark gray. Those pockets of 5 to 10 centimeters certainly possible, and a little bit less in towards the south and west. Temperatures right near the freezing mark across Cape Breton tomorrow and back towards Antigonish and through Sherbrooke and the eastern shore into the central parts of the province. Temperatures, again, right around the freezing mark. Will fall a couple of degrees here into the afternoon, no question. And as you can see through the south and west as well, temperatures on the plus side, but we will fall a little bit into the afternoon, mid to late afternoon especially. Now, into Wednesday, that cold air in place in that northwest wind, and it is going to be real deal cold here again, -7 to -10 for highs on Wednesday. Mostly a mix of sun and cloud, but some onshore flurries for Cape Breton on Wednesday. And then as we look ahead into the Thursday time period, by all accounts, right now, we're going to get home on Thursday okay. Perhaps just the Tri-County area, a few flakes before home time on Thursday. Everywhere else at the current timing right now, this looks like accumulating snow overnight Thursday, transitioning then to rain by the time we get to Friday morning. And we're going to be seeing temperatures bumping up into the 3, 4, maybe 5 degree range for Friday afternoon as this all tapers off. Cold shot comes back in Saturday. Yet another system to watch for Sunday. That one, more uncertainty, but it's doing its thing. It's active here for sure.
It's all over the place. Okay, thanks so much, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Coming up, how Nova Scotia's forestry industry has been wrestling with the threat of tariffs. U.S. President Donald Trump has agreed to a pause of a 25% tariff on Canadian imports. Instead of going into effect Tuesday, he says it will be delayed for a month.
For more on the potential impact here, I met with Robin Wilbur, president of Elmsdale Lumber Company Limited, at the annual general meeting of Forest Nova Scotia. We spoke prior to the news of the 1-month delay. Your initial thoughts on this?
I was surprised that the president would do a total across the board 25%. I thought he would pick maybe a few products and build. But as the bully that we know he is, he went at it full bore. That's a bit of a surprise.
The timing of this meeting is quite interesting. You've got a lot of folks in the room who will definitely be impacted should it go ahead. What are folks saying?
Oh, well, there's a lot of uncertainty. I think we don't know all the answers, of course, how it will affect Canada as a whole, our forest industry here in Nova Scotia. That'll be told in the next few months, I'm sure. But one thing people should understand is that last year, the U.S. produced 37 billion board feet of lumber, and they used 51 billion. That's a 14 billion board foot shortfall, of which 12 billion came from Canada. We know that both countries have a shortfall in housing. If both countries embrace that and try to build more homes and apartment buildings, etc., that's going to use a lot of wood. So, contrary to the president's comments that he doesn't need Canadian wood, yes, they do. And I think the American public will have a rude awakening when that comes to light. And of course, prices are always the issue. Lumber is a commodity product. And so the prices are determined by the law of supply and demand. So if the demand goes up to meet the shortfall in housing, then that will affect prices going up. So then the bottom line is who pays the tariff? The U.S. consumer or the Canadian producer? Well, the Canadian producer can't afford to pay a 25% tariff. And if the volume of wood that's needed goes up, then the law of supply and demand will probably have the American consumer pay at least part of a big portion of the tariff, and that may be a rude awakening for the American public.
What about on this side of the border? Would Canadians pay more for lumber, or would they maybe get a break on lumber because of it's not as profitable to go south anymore?
Again, law of supply and demand, well, that's a question that would take a lot of analytical thinking and discussion. I think the only way to determine that is to wait and see.
Well, then how do you brace for impact, given this is looming?
Well, I think Tim Houston's got the answer to that, or a partial answer. He said the other day that it's time that Nova Scotia opened up to use our natural resources. We've held back we've turned down more things from Nova Scotia. If we want to open our economy and have it grow and not be a have-not province forever, we need to do things sustainably. We need to do it right, but we need to be able to do it. And forestry has been, the special interest groups, don't ever cut a tree. They think that we want to cut all the trees down. No, we want to grow more trees. Why would we want to cut all the trees down? We'd put ourselves out of business. We want to grow more trees. We don't cut our annual allowable cut in Nova Scotia now. We're not even close to it. Forestry has come a long way in the last number of decades. We've learned a lot, and we have better equipment, and we have great silviculture programs, and I think the Premier's on the right track.
When you're talking about the equipment, will your prices go up for that as well with tariffs?
Canada is known worldwide for forestry, and because of that, a lot of sawmill equipment is produced, engineered, designed, and produced in Canada, and same with forestry equipment. So I think we'll be able to avoid buying U.S. And I think yes, there are U.S. producers, and that's a complicated thing. It's like cars, does the transmission made in Canada, but the gearboxes are made in the States, and that's going to be a very complicated issue as well.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. We do appreciate it.
You're quite welcome. Thank you.
Coming up, going global, Donald Trump is expanding the targets of his tariff threats to include the European Union.
And some parents say the social media app Snapchat is making it easy for drug dealers to sell to their children. Welcome back. As we told you earlier, Canada and the U.S. have agreed to pause tariffs against each other for at least 30 days.
The development comes after Prime Minister Justin Trudeau spoke to U.S. President Donald Trump twice. As Olivia Stefanovich explains, the agreement wasn't made right away.
And he can probably
for the first time since returning to the Oval Office, U.S. President Donald Trump spoke to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau not once but twice today.
We had a good talk in the morning.
But unlike his call with Mexico's president, who agreed to send 10,000 soldiers to the U.S.-Mexico border in exchange for a one-month tariff deferral, Trump didn't extend the same reprieve to his northern neighbor.
Look, what I'd like to see, Canada become our 51st state.
It took a second call between the two leaders for Trump to agree to pause tariffs for at least 30 days, while Canada cracks down on illegal migrants and fentanyl. But with the threat of levies still looming.
I'm angry and upset that we're being targeted in this way, and we are going to stand up.
But there are calls for Canada to do more.
Immediately deploy military troops, helicopters, and surveillance to the border.
The idea of militarizing the world's largest undefended border, supported by Saskatchewan's premier, as a way to de-escalate the situation.
We also need to do what we can to work alongside our largest trading partner.
Instead, Trudeau says nearly 10,000 frontline personnel will work on protecting the border. Canada will list cartels as terrorists, appoint a fentanyl czar, and spend $200 million on a new intelligence directive to tackle the illegal drug and organized crime. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Ottawa.
As you just heard, U.S. President Donald Trump has paused his tariff threats against Mexico for 1 month as well. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum says she's struck a deal with Trump to delay the 25% tariffs on her country. Sheinbaum has agreed to send 10,000 members of the Mexican National Guard to the U.S. border to combat drug trafficking. In exchange, she said the U.S. committed to working on preventing the movement of high-powered weapons into Mexico. The U.S. and Mexican leaders announced the pause after what Trump described on social media as, quote, a very friendly conversation. Trump says he's looking forward to upcoming talks led by Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
Fears over an impending trade war sent shockwaves across the markets today. Stocks dropped sharply on Wall Street, and the Canadian dollar temporarily slipped to an historic low. The CBC's Kyle Bax reports.
A rough ride on the markets, ebbing and flowing with every announcement and comment out of the White House. Initially, the TSX fell 2.5%, while the Canadian dollar plunged to a nearly 22-year low below 68 cents US. All of this following the announcement of U.S. tariffs against Canada and Mexico over the weekend. The markets recovered much of the losses, but remained down, spooked by how tariffs could not only impact Canada, but North America and the global economy.
What to make of it? The markets have no idea what to do. We saw, of course, the obvious losers. Any Canadian company that manufactures goods, physical goods to sell into the U.S. get destroyed.
It's a highly fluid situation, a lot of volatility, a lot of uncertainty. But I'd say so far the reaction in the Canadian dollar, although we've seen a fairly significant drop in the exchange rate, it could have been a lot worse.
U.S. stocks are also down over the concern that tariffs will hurt many households and drive up inflation. Overall, a tremendous amount of uncertainty with more volatility expected as the tariff threat remains. Kyle Bax, CBC News, Calgary.
Donald Trump is expanding the targets of his trade war to include the European Union. Trump has threatened to hit the 27-state bloc with tariffs, saying he could impose taxes on EU goods imported into the U.S. very soon. The CBC's Crystal Gamansing reports from London.
European leaders are calling for unity in the face of potential tariffs by U.S. President Donald Trump. It's important to remember that the EU acts as a single bloc when it comes to trade, but it's made up of 27 different nations. And today in Brussels, we've heard from a number of leaders. They were supposed to be meeting to talk about European defense, but the economy and how best to respond to the possibility of tariffs has become a center point of conversation. We have heard, for example, from the EU's foreign policy chief, who says that no one wants to be fighting an ally. However, a number of leaders are saying they don't appear to have any other choice but to come back with some sort of response against the U.S.
I think that we have to do everything to avoid this totally unnecessary and stupid tariff wars or trade wars.
We're a small open economy. We depend on trade, and it is our view that the Union has championed that and will continue to champion that, and Europe will work together on these issues and engage with the US in a constructive manner.
UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer is also in Brussels, the first UK Prime Minister to attend one of these meetings since Brexit. He is in an interesting position because at this point it doesn't appear that Donald Trump is focusing on potential tariffs against the UK, at least not right now. Maybe those will be delayed. He's focused on the EU at the moment. But even if those tariffs come into effect in the EU, it could have a knock-on effect, according to some economists.
If the EU imposes tariffs on the US as well, the implication for the EU economy will potentially be significant, with weaker growth and higher inflation. Being an important trading partner for the UK, that will have implication on the UK as well.
Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
Donald Trump's billionaire advisor, Elon Musk, says he aims to shut down the U.S. foreign aid agency, USAID, and he says the president supports the move. Musk took to X in the early morning hours today to say Trump, quote, agreed to the shutdown of the agency. It serves as the U.S. government's main international humanitarian arm. USAID employees were sent a memo overnight ordering them not to come into the office at the agency's Washington headquarters. 600 staffers also reported being locked out of the agency's computer systems. Musk oversees the new Department of Government Efficiency, part of Trump's effort to reduce federal bureaucracy.
An Ontario father says he's struggling to keep his teenage son away from drug dealers on Snapchat. Ithil Musa with our Go Public team looks at why some say the popular social media platform is ripe for drug trafficking.
It's an app known for its fun filters, but one Ontario parent warns Snapchat is also where illicit drugs are sold.
I'm trying to keep my son safe while these drug dealers are manipulating him, because they're reaching out.
We're not identifying Roger to protect his son's identity. He says his 15-year-old has been buying drugs on Snapchat, but tracking that has been difficult for one main reason.
Messages on Snapchat are deleted once they're viewed by the recipient. It's a unique feature of the app that makes it nearly impossible, say some parents, to monitor illegal activity.
Getting access to drugs on Snapchat isn't just a problem here in Canada. In the U.S., relatives of more than 60 young people who've overdosed on drugs allegedly purchased on the app have filed a lawsuit that claims Snapchat's role in illicit drug sales to teens was the foreseeable result of the designs, structures, and policies Snap chose to implement to increase its revenues.
I think that Snapchat's executives belong in prison.
Sam Chapman is one of the plaintiffs in the lawsuit. His 16-year-old son, Sammy, died in 2021 after overdosing on a pill he purchased on Snapchat. Chapman says his son didn't know it was fentanyl.
The dose that killed him was delivered to our front yard like a pizza after we were asleep, and we found Sammy dead on the floor.
Family Center.
Snapchat says their parental control features allow parents to see who their child is talking to on the app and to report any concerns. The company also says it uses artificial intelligence to shut down the accounts of drug dealers. But this youth activist says it's not enough.
All of your messages and the photos you send, the stories you post, disappear after 24 hours. It creates this black box of social media where you don't have any record of what you sent.
And that has Roger in constant fear that his 15-year-old son will overdose.
I cried driving past a cemetery because I started thinking about, okay, if my son dies, how are we going to do this?
Roger says his focus now is keeping his son safe, and with Snapchat, it continues to be a challenge. Idil Musa, CBC News, Toronto.
A new clinic on PEI is offering ketamine therapy to some islanders struggling with mental health. Experts say it's a good option when traditional therapies don't work. Connor Lamont reports.
A new clinic in Stratford is offering a nasal ketamine spray to treat mental health conditions. Ketamine has been used as an anesthetic before surgery for decades. Now it's offering some islanders hope when traditional therapies don't work.
Probably about 15 years ago, they realized that if you use doses that are smaller than are required for anesthesia to knock a person out, let's say, but still enough to make them kind of wonky, you can get really good results for depression.
Many people know ketamine as a party drug, but experts say it can help with treatment-resistant depression and suicidal thoughts. The Nuvista Psychedelic Medicine Clinic offers a sketamine nasal spray, known by the brand name Spravato. It's approved by Health Canada. Patients receive a dose through each nostril and then relax in a quiet and dark room.
Some folks will have memories of different events in their past, or kind of like a flashback of sorts to an event. And we certainly just we explain to them that to let themselves experience it in its entirety, and not to work against the medication and just kind of relax and kind of fall into it.
Martin says the patient's vitals are regularly checked during a session. Ketamine can increase blood pressure, and some may experience nausea. It's been a game changer for many veterans and emergency responders.
It's changed my life, like, tremendously. I feel like I'm a better dad. I can actually have a proper conversation without getting overly worked up and heated and just shutting off all opinions that aren't mine.
Esketamine treatment can be very expensive. A single session at Nuvista's PEI location is $1,100. A usual treatment plan can cost more than $6,000.
It's a treatment that's not first, second, third, or fourth line. It's one that can be considered. However, the difficulties really are in accessing it, and also the long-term side effects. And so people should, ensure that they're getting proper, adequate care all along the way.
For now, Nuvista is mainly offering esketamine to veterans and RCMP. Health PEI says it is open to emerging treatments if they are approved and follow guidelines. Connor Lamont, CBC News, Stratford.
Well, if you've ever been to Quebec City this time of year, you might be familiar with its famous Winter Carnival. It's steeped in tradition that goes back more than 100 years.
It is one of the largest winter festivals in the world, and a big part is the Ice Palace, the headquarters of the festival's representative, Bonhomme Carnival. The CBC's Rachel Watts dropped by for a tour.
I'm inside the hub of the Carnival de Québec, the world's largest winter festival, and it's a very icy and cold ice palace.
It's 4,200 tons of ice. It's almost 3,000 blocks that the team will work with, and it's a team of only 12 persons, so it takes them 17 days to build the ice palace, and including the time they are putting in the sculpture inside of the ice palace.
This ice palace is a long-standing tradition here, and it's also the headquarters of the very nimble and quite tall mascot named Bonhomme. Okay, so a little bit of history for you. The first edition of this festival was actually held in 1894, but interrupted by 2 world wars and the Great Depression, it was held intermittently between those years. But flash forward to 1954, and business people in Quebec City decided to revamp the festival and choose Bonhomme as its official mascot. Now, artisans have a very limited window to get all of these blocks of ice, almost 3,000 of them, in place and ready for the start of the festival on February 7th.
We are almost done. I will say 95% of the building is done. Ice is ice. If it's over -5, it will be some damage. Then, for me, I cover ice since 45 years, and still this every year is just a wow effect. I'm still very impressed.
This year, for the first time, at the end of the festival, people can come and carve into these blocks themselves.
After the carnival, we have to destroy the Ice Palace, but just before we do that, people are invited to come and use the Ice Palace as a big piece of art, a canvas.
Cool stuff. Well, as we told you earlier, the threat of a punishing trade war sent Wall Street on a roller coaster today. Canada's main stock index closed down nearly 300 points, while the loonie fell to its lowest level in more than 2 decades before bouncing back. Here's a look at the numbers as we head to break.
Hi, I'm Steve Sutherland in Sydney. If you want to know what's happening in Cape Breton Island or what's important to the people who live here, join me for Information Morning Cape Breton. News, views, interviews, live reports, reporters on the scene on matters of politics, art, community, current affairs. If it's being talked about in Cape Breton, we're talking about it on Information Morning. Every weekday morning from 6 to 8:37 on CBC Radio 1.
All right, we had a peek outside the window here at the CBC in Halifax, and it seems to be a bit of a mix of rain and snow at this point.
Yeah, I have to really have a hard time figuring out how to dress in this weather, right?
For sure.
Bring your layers and waterproof everything.
Yeah, that's right. And we will see that kind of mix with rain and snow along the Atlantic coastline for tonight, and change right over to rain for sure for the Tri-County area. That's where things will really get most mild, 3-4 degrees overnight. Let's have a look first at our viewer picture of the day. This one, Pleasant Harbor. Colette Lambert, thank you very much for sharing this.
And very pleasant it is, don't you think?
That's beautiful.
This is east of Clam Harbor, west of Taylor's Head, just to give you a sense of where this is on the eastern shore. A beautiful spot indeed. Thanks again, Colette. Ryan's picks at cbc.ca. Now, again, very light precipitation underway right now. The steadiest precip will then move in as we move overnight, and this is where we'll see that snow. Also should mention that Cape Breton will also likely see some of that mixing this evening. Light, but nonetheless, and then a change to snow, as you can see overnight, Cape Breton across the mainland, Halifax area, the South Shore, the Tri-County area. Those are the areas that will likely see that mixing continue even into the early morning hours of Tuesday. Then a change back over through a bit of a messy mix over to some snow and flurries as this all moves out through Tuesday morning. We're back into the sun for Tuesday afternoon, things clouding up a little bit, and you can see some scattered flurries for most of the mainland, and then also across into the Cape Breton region. So yeah, a little bit of everything, and then those temperatures are really going to drop into the Wednesday timeframe. So there's the snowfall outlook this evening, overnight, and into Tuesday morning. By the time we get to even Tuesday afternoon, we'll include you folks there for Inverness County, where the onshore flurries will continue there. But generally looking at about 2 to 5 centimeters with those pockets of 5 to 10. The Highlands more. There are those temperatures for Tuesday, which will fall into the afternoon as those northwest winds strengthen, and will be even cooler for Wednesday as we see that next system starting to approach from the west through the day on Thursday. And that one is also looking set to bring some accumulating snow.
Be prepared for that. Okay, thanks, Ryan. Well, a yoga class in Corner Brook, Newfoundland is aiming to make it easier to get new moms out of the house.
Won't you say you love me too?
The Studio, a new fitness and wellness space in the city, is offering baby and mom yoga. It's a way for babies and moms to stretch, work out, and socialize together.
The hope is that this will help ease postpartum depression and improve overall mental health.
All right, well, that's it for us tonight. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Good night.
Good night.